Actually, Mario, Lorraine, and your employer, Hadley, Diolu and Co., chartered accountants, are the firm of chartered accountants you work with. So the present came with 2-year summarized income statement of Wonder Bank Limited, 2014-2015. Then there's the balance sheet or the statement of financial position for 2014 and 2015 also. The first exhibit talked about who you are, what you do in the firm, your responsibilities, etc. The exhibit 2 also talked about your boss, who you report to, Tinuke Abubakar. And she sent you an email talking about Wonder Bank, your client Wonder Bank, and the job that it entails. So the background of the bank entailed it operates in Nigeria, Ghana, and Benin, and they talked about the project they want to go on and work on. So the exhibit 1 ended up with Project Sky, the 3 initiatives they want to move to migration, robotics, and contract services. And she ended the email by saying she would have to get a report out to the client in 24 hours, which the client is Wonder Bank Limited. Okay, so exhibit 3 was an email to or attention to Atinuke FCA, and the email came from the Chief Finance Officer of Wonder Bank Limited, Enam Bichang. So she talked about the kind of services they offer, what the migration, the robotics, the contract services was all about. So there won't be much time to read it. Then we have the exhibit 4, which has to do with the statement of comprehensive income for the bank, looking at the 2-year financial summary 2014 and 2015, and also exhibit 5, the statement of financial position, looking at the assets and the commentary on the portfolio of the bank. So that ended the pre-scene, and the on-scene came with 2 more exhibits. The email from Atinuke to Mario, who is the boss, or from your boss to you. Exactly. So the email came with those documents, which had to do with 2 of them. Email from Tinuke Abubakar, your boss, and also the commentary on the financial statements of Wonder Bank. Okay, so the email to you now brought the requirements, talking about the executive summary and responses to the 2 detailed requirements set out in Exhibit 6, including appropriate appendices. All right, so you have to note also about the executive summary. If you fail to write an executive summary, you will have slim chances of passing the case study. This is very important. So the executive summary is essential, and it's 20 marks, but if you don't write it, you may not pass the case study exam. It's very important to note that. Okay, so looking at the exhibit 6, talking about the migration, also the initiatives and the mail, the requirements came in the first paragraph. We are required to prepare a report to the Board of Directors of Wonder Bank Limited. The report should comprise the SWOT, which is the strength, weakness, opportunities, and threat analysis of Project Sky, taking into consideration all the 3 initiatives, that is the projects they want to go through, their merits and demerits. And the report should also consider business options open to Wonder Bank, as well as possible risks of each initiative and how such risk would be addressed. So that was the first requirement. The second requirement is a determination of whether it would be cheaper for Wonder Bank to lease or to buy the robotics or buy the robots for the robotics initiative. A brief discussion on the financial reporting implication of leasing in A, yes, as well as the implication on gearing and financial risk of Wonder Bank Limited. So we are to note that for calculation of gearing, comparison should be made between pre-lease and post-lease scenarios. Take note of that, assuming that the lease arrangement commenced as at the start of 2016. So the examiner was very clear that we should compare the pre-lease, which include before going into the lease and after the lease scenarios, to provide answers to our, or provide computations to factor in this. So we have Exhibit 7 that has to do with commentary on the financial statements of the bank, the reporting entity, the interests, the PPE, the computer software, the ordinary shares of the company, dividends on ordinary shares, cash and cash equivalent, tax, provisions, and that ended the unseen. All right, so let's go back to the requirements, and they talked about SWOT analysis. So let's go over SWOT analysis of Project Sky, taking into consideration all the three initiatives and their individual merits and demerits. And the examiner stated, your report should also consider alternative business options open to Wonder Bank Limited, as well as the possible risk of each initiative and how such risks may be addressed. Okay, so take note of the examiner's report. He made some very striking statements in the report. The examiner's report stated that the case, the bank proposed or is proposing a strategic move involving three initiatives to improve strategic performance. So candidates were to evaluate the proposal by carrying out a SWOT analysis of the project and suggest possible problems or risks inherent in the initiatives, while suggesting alternative options open to the bank, and also determine whether to lease or buy the robots exactly required for one of the initiatives. Now, take note of this. He said most candidates demonstrated a little understanding of the requirements of the case, and those who seemed to understand did not list the SWOT as required, but only mentioned them in their report. So take note of that. As a result, candidates' performance was poor, as only 5% of the candidates scored 50% and above. That was so bad, very bad. Now, he said the common pitfalls were the lack of technical ability in report writing. This is one of the challenges with the case study paper. Like I always say, the case study paper is not a calculation paper, it's a report writing paper. Over 80% of the marks goes to your report writing. And number two, he said lack of understanding of the IFRS requirements in determination of whether the lease is finance lease or operating lease. Another challenge. And two, failure to calculate NPV of the two options, and inability to determine the strength, weakness, opportunity, stress of the proposed initiatives. So he's advising for future examinations that we should learn and master report writing skill. Exactly, not just the skill, but understand the structure of how to have a report for the case study exams. We start with the executive summary, and the main discussion of findings should be detailed with headers and subheaders. This is very, very important. Also, he said we should practice with previous case study examinations to familiarize ourselves with the requirements of the case study, which this is what we are doing. We are practicing, and we've submitted our mock, which is very good. And he said, always remember that the knowledge and skills.
Good evening, I'm late.
No problem. You're welcome, Julie. You're welcome. No problem.
I believe I slept off. Can you imagine?
Oh, you must be tired, I guess. Sorry.
Hey, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I'm sure I must have missed a lot. Try.
No, no, not really. We started not long ago. We are still talking about the examiner's report, so don't worry.
Oh, thank God. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So, right.
Yeah, so you're welcome. All right, so he said
Thank
we
you,
should
sir.
always remember, so he said we should always remember the knowledge and skills that have been acquired in previous subjects. And if you look at this paper, financial reporting was tested, advanced taxation was tested, SFM was tested. The only thing you will not find in this question is audit. But CR, SFM, tax was tested graphically, and the requirement 2 was excellently pepperish. When I say excellently pepperish, it was bitterly pepperish. In fact, I solved it and I was like, what? So the practice section will only help you to understand how to navigate the complexities of requirement 2. And the examiner is used to pimping requirement 2 very, very well. So please take note of this last comment. Always remember that the knowledge and skills required in previous subject of the examination will be required to do well in the case study. Yes, so this question portrays it, and I'll show you, because the requirement 2 was a chunk or combination of CR, A tax, and SFM combined in the requirement 2. So I'll show you that. Okay, so back to the question. Having looked at the examiner's report, let's go quickly to the requirement again. He said a SWOT analysis of the project Sky, taking into consideration all the 3 initiatives and their individual merits and demerits. Yes. And he said your report should also consider alternative business options open to Wonder Bank, as well as the possible risks of each initiative and how such risks may be addressed. So in carrying out your report, so let's go to the discussion first. Now, you know that the requirement 1 didn't have any computation. He didn't say you should do ratios, so there are no ratios. So even because of time, if you go to the appendix, you see that the examiner says appendix requirement 1, you don't need to append the SWOT analysis. It will be a waste of time. The examiner just put this SWOT analysis in the appendix so that he can help students follow through. But this is not necessary. Don't waste your time. You understand what SWOT is. So take your time and speak to SWOT, because that is what he said. But in the appendix 1, that is what the examiner put in his solution. So he put the strength of Wonder Bank, and is listed here from increased cash flow down. Sorry, please, can you mute if you're not speaking, please? Thank you. Okay, so he said we should the strength, he said, from increased cash flow of the bank down to project seems to fit the organization's strategic plan. Example, the promotion of green environment on the website and the annual reports, blah. So these are the strengths and these are the weakness. So strengths and weakness are internal to an organization. Don't forget that. You know that by now. Strength and weakness are internal factors of the organization, while opportunities and threats are external factors to the organization. So talking about weakness, looking at the case, there were staff layoffs down to possible vested interest from their directors. So these ones were internal issues. While opportunities talked about improved branding of the organization in offshore countries where they operated or they were domiciled, and also the opportunity to contribute to greener or cleaner environment. And also the threats, external too, were protests would cause further problems from staff that were laid off, and also regulatory risk due to possible breach of rules. So these were the identified SWOT in the case. So if you can identify them, you don't need to write them here so you don't waste your time. Time is of the essence in the case study paper. So now, how do we discuss the elements or discuss in the main report before we come to our executive summary? Now, don't forget, we have a format, and it was shared on the platform. There's a format, and that's the format we will follow. We've spoken to that format severally on previous videos. So it's the same format that will help us have adequate structure, headers and subheaders. So the first thing you talk about is the general overview based on what is in the exhibits, especially exhibit 1, exhibit 2. You just speak to the exhibits in the first overview. And don't forget, for each section, you need to discuss 4 paragraphs to be able to have superior achievement. If you discuss 3 good points, you have competent achievement, which should be your minimum in the exams. So looking at the header, a lot of people make mistakes in the case study exams and say for requirement 1, they will write requirement 1 as a header. Don't do that. You will be marked down. Don't write requirement 1 as a header. Requirement 1 is not what the examiner asks you to do. So in this case, requirement 1's header states a SWOT analysis. You can summarize this, not to copy and paste everything, but don't write requirement 1 or write financial statement analysis. No. And even in this case, he did not ask you to do financial statement analysis in requirement 1. So most candidates, you look at their script, they'll say financial statement analysis. That's not what he asked you. And financial statement analysis is not a requirement. So state the requirement unequivocally. State it clearly. If you will not state it verbatim, state it in a summary form that he understands this is what he wants you to do. So like I said here, I say it's SWOT analysis of project Sky High, taking into consideration all the 3 initiatives, alternative business options, as well as the possible risk of each initiative. Simple. I didn't copy verbatim everything, but I took the main points, and the examiner knows this is requirement 1 and he's going to mark you up. So the first point is from the exhibits, discussing Wonder Bank Limited and the project's initiatives. So we looked at the amount. The project aims to reduce cost at this amount prospectively, or they are forecasting for over 3 years to run these projects, migration, robotics, and contract services. And these changes will lead to staff reductions and minimum severance payouts as emphasized by the CFO. So you pick one point for this discussion here, and that's from the exhibit. So everything you do on the general overview, which is the first header, and other subheaders is just to pick the points, and the exhibit is enough for you to pick your valuable points from. Number 2, we talked about the cost saving and efficiency initiatives. Looking at the migration, talked about the cost benefit of the purchase, which is the purchase cost consideration is 5.8 billion, and for the lease 1.7. So we just generally took from the exhibits and discussed. And this is the second point. We pick 2 marks. And the third mark, we talked about the significant enhancement of cash flow of Wonder Bank and how the upfront cost or the purchase and the lease amounts we set to cut labor cost, improve service efficiency, and steal from the exhibits 1 point. This is 3 marks. Then the final point in this area, because if you discuss 4, you are fine, is about the strategic initiative, how critical it is to the bank, how the migration could enhance workforce efficiency and flexibility, and how robotics could drive automation, reduce reliance on manual processes, and improve speed and accuracy. So this is the 4th one. So I gave you a 5th one, but once you under exam condition, you give 4. Please move on. So I give you a 5th one so that you can have enough to read about. So the 5th one talked about the large-scale transformation initiative of Wonder Bank and the significance of these migrations and the dedicated governance framework with clear rules, tracking, stakeholder alignment and accountability. So looking at this will help the successful execution of this project. So this is very important. So I gave you 5 points here, but once you list 4 under the general overview, which generally looks at data and information, you'll be able to provide, you'll be able to get 4 marks very, very clearly. Very clearly. So that's for the first header on the SWOT. So you've not yet gotten to SWOT here. You're just speaking to the general overview of what the case is all about. And number 2, the second header, you're talking about your professional tools. Professional tools talk about what you are using to analyze the case. And the examiner has already told you what to do, a SWOT analysis. So stick to what the examiner says, except if he gives you an option and says, use a model appropriate. But once he gives you a model, even if you don't know it, please, you cannot use another model. So he has already told you his SWOT. So in the second header, the main header you're supposed to use is analysis of business model. So if you look at the examiner's structure, it's professional tool. So this professional tool is SWOT. Now, the first point you need to discuss SWOT, and the first thing you should talk about is the strength. So applying SWOT analysis to Project Sky, its strengths include enhanced operational efficiency, cost savings, technological advancement through workforce migration, robotics, and automation. So the strength should be the first point, even though we talked about the weakness, but that's not where we should be able to raise issues. But then, discussing the weakness is not out of point. Discussing the opportunities and also threats under this point is fine, because we're analyzing the business model. We've not applied or aligned it graphically with the case. And B, we're looking at the accuracy of the information provided by Project Sky, which is critical to information or informed decision making. That's another point. So we are looking at the accuracy of how they came up with the estimates, projected savings, and we're looking at any discrepancies will affect the decision making. So the integrity of the data provided should help us with our scenario analysis and strengthen the confidence of those using the financial information. So that's just an analysis of the business tools, the second point. And number 3, we're talking about beyond the immediate financial and operational consideration, that the project must account for broader issues on regulatory compliance, environmental impact, stakeholder expectations, and market dynamics. So that's the third point we are raising under analysis of the business model. And the fourth point we're looking at is factors that consider supply chain dependencies, scalability, data security, and post-implementation support to ensure long-term viability of the project. We also discuss the project's impact on brand reputation, customer experience, and alignment with ESG. ESG is an emerging or current issue in governance, environmental, social, and governance principles. This should also be evaluated to help mitigate unforeseen risks. So this is very important. Once you've discussed 4 points under the professional tools, which has to do with analysis of the business model, you move. Then the third point is your analysis, your display of analysis, and that's displaying your analytical skills. So in terms of models, when discussing or trying to display analytical skills, you are integrating the model that was asked by the examiner into the case. So in the professional tools, we've identified the SWOT we are using and other points or other issues to talk about, but this third header should integrate the model into the case at hand. And that is why broadly we are discussing the strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats in different paragraphs. So the first one we're talking about is the strength. You see that Project Sky possesses internal strengths that position it for success. So like a clear vision is a strength, strong leadership, competent project team, these are strengths. And the benefits include robust financial planning, adequate funding, innovative approach. So this well-structured governance system help project execution, market acceptance, and growth. So these are the strengths we talk about in the third header. The fourth header now, the second point under the same header, we look at the internal weaknesses that could pose challenge to the success. Resource restraints. limited skill personnel. They are going to lay off some people. Financial pressures that may affect execution. So these are the weaknesses. There may also be operational inefficiencies or gaps in project governance and decision-making processes, leading to delays or misalignment with strategic goals. So these are some of the internal weaknesses that may pose a challenge for. So just discuss them freely. And the third one, or the third point, is the opportunities, which are external. So don't forget, strength and weakness are internal, but opportunities and threats are external. And some of the external opportunities that may enhance their success is market demand growth, customer interests, technological advancement. So these issues discussed here can increase profitability and competitive positioning, which are external opportunities that should be explored. So you are discussing them broadly here. And finally, the external or the threats. Market competition are significant risk. New entrants, economic downturns, inflation, operational cost of stuff like diesel and all that. So economic issues, compliance risk, these are what you should discuss as threats. These are external to the organization. Geographical or geopolitical instability. Wonder Bank is in another country, or other countries. They have 2 locations outside the country. So currency fluctuations, OPEX, FX, environmental factors, these are what you should talk about as external threats. So you've in detail integrated the SWOT model in your analytical skills. So what you just done is you've displayed analytical skills here, and you provided 4 good discussions, and you have 4 marks. So I think requirement 1 was very simple, and that is why he made sure he pimped requirement 2. Requirement 2's calculation were so pepperish. When we get to it, you look at it, because my namesake asked me, say, why is it up to 42 pages? Just the tutorial alone for the requirement 2, I think I took over 10 pages to explain the calculations, because he integrated corporate reporting, IAS 17, which is currently IFRS 16 on leases. He integrated tax, capital allowance, balancing allowance, tax written down value. Everything you know about tax, you must bring back the knowledge here in requirement 2. He now brought SFM, brought effective interest rate, MPV, post-tax, pre-tax. It was a pepperish requirement 2. So requirement 1 was simple in my view, because there were no calculations. You just need to discuss. And I think with this discussion, you should be able to glean marks, very good marks. So having talked about the third header, which is your analytical skills, you now want to look at issues and options. So the issues and options header talked about challenges and consideration. What are the challenges with the project? And integrating SWOT into it. So number 1, Sky may experience a slower start due to several factors, including time required for regulatory approvals, stakeholder alignment, infrastructural setup. So these are challenges and considerations. So under this header, if you discuss something like this, you pick 1 point. So don't forget, the exam is more of structure and following a particular pattern to communicate your thoughts in the case. So if you follow this pattern and these headers, you're going to impress the examiner. But if you write shabbily without any plan, without any structure, just discuss broadly, you make the examiner find it hard reading your script or marking you or assessing you. So looking at the challenges and the considerations main header, these subtopics or these sub-points, talking about the challenges and what you should consider, will bring you very good marks. So looking at the slower start is a challenge, but it could be mitigated. Then number 2, the project needs to build momentum by establishing a strong operational foundation, effective marketing position, and stakeholder confidence. So this is a consideration, while A is a challenge. So any challenge or consideration that comes to your mind as thought, please pen it down and discuss it in detail. Number 3, the Sky High project must proactively address staff union issues. Remember in the exhibit, the what's her name? The CFO of Wonder Bank said they are going to lay off some staff. So the organization with this plan must proactively address staff union issue, because when you lay off staff, labor will come in. So they need to mitigate that by ensuring alignment between the organization's goals and employee expectations. So key concerns like, so this is a challenge they need to address. So under this header, you can see we are talking about it. So please read it and ensure that you understand how to put your thoughts down. One good thing with reading reports like this is that you begin to construct and your thoughts begin to build up. So under exam conditions, you know how to address this. Very important. So the fourth point is looking at outsourcing the management of robotics in Sky High. We introduce security risks related to data privacy, intellectual property protection, system integrity, and operational control. So this is a challenge we are foreseeing. So under this header, you can see the points aligned with what the header is about. And I gave you a fifth point. I said, if affected staff that were laid off go public, Sky High project may face negative press, which has to do with reputational damage, stakeholder backlash, potentially undermining confidence in the initiative that they want to carry out on the migration, robotics, and the other one. So these 5 points, if you do 4, you pick 4 marks. So be mark conscious. Each header, from the general overview to the use of professional tools and the analytical skills, then the challenges, each ones are 4 marks. Take note of that. And you need to write and discuss 4 points. So let's move to the most critical out of them. And the examiner warns you, if you don't talk about ethical issues, you'll stand a chance of not passing the exam. Is his instruction, so obey it. Ethical issues or critical matters in the case study must be discussed in both requirement 1 and 2. Take note of that. Now, the critical issue in this case, looking at Sky High's project, number 1, the governance and management quality will be critical to its success. So requiring clear leadership, accountability, and robust oversight. This is critical to the success of the project. So effective project governance should ensure strategic alignment with organizational goals. So this critical issue is not, it may not necessarily be an ethical matter, but it needs to be brought to bear. Now, to enhance governance quality, the project should implement structured frameworks, define role responsibilities, continue. So you're already succinctly providing a way out, even though you still have your conclusion and recommendation to talk about. So you can see talking about this, you pick 1 mark seamlessly on this critical issue. Number 2, second mark you want to pick. Looking at the project is ambitious and strategic aligned, but it's important to recognize that not all targets may be achieved. So it's critical to understand that within the set frame, due to unforeseen challenges, resource constraint, and operational complexities. So like delays in implementation, this is not factored in the planning and the forecasting. Resistance to change from staff, dependencies on external parties, regulatory hurdles, technical difficulties to slow down. So this critically should be integrated. And you're talking about these critical matters because you are telling the board that this may come up. They should consider it. And that's your job as a chartered accountant, to advise the board of directors. So you're also saying a flexible approach, periodic assessment of goals, contingency planning will be essential to mitigate this risk. So you are providing small solution or probable solution to this in discussing even the ethical issues or the critical issues. And the third point is an ethical issue, looking at the suggested approach of balancing consideration to efficiency, stakeholder impact. The key fair treatment of affected employees that will be laid off is very important. This one is an ethical issue. So the first and the second are critical issues, but you see this third one is an ethical issue, because when it comes to staff welfare, it becomes ethical. Staff should not be treated shabbily, because transparency in decision making, compliance with labor laws, and ensuring that outsourcing practices aligned with ethical labor standard is very important. So corporate social responsibility comes in here. It should be defined well in their corporate social responsibility. Adequate staff transition support, open communication to minimize resistance and reputational risk. So you're already suggesting the way out of this ethical issue, even in your discussion. So this is good. Now, the fourth one is also an ethical issue, talking about releasing confidential information on the project to third parties. This may leak. It's also an ethical issue. So they need to work on it without stringent data protection measures, contractual safeguards, access controls, sensitive business intelligence, trade secrets. It may affect the bank. The bank may be hacked. So they have to be careful in ensuring continuous monitoring, employee training, data security, compliance with industry regulations will help protect the integrity of the project and prevent unauthorized disclosure. So this is an ethical issue also. And finally, number 5, because I give you about, 5, 6, I give you almost 7 ethical issues. So if you pick 4 good ones, you have a plethora of discussions to talk on critical and ethical matters. Why? Because the examiner is very keen. Executive summary ethical issues should be discussed as separate headers. If you must pass case study, it's very important. Okay, so number 5, the possibility of breaking regulatory rules is possible. Compliance with industry regulations, labor laws, data protection standards is essential. So this ethical issue needs to be brought to cognizance. You need to bring it out, and as you discuss it, you're talking about establishing clear governance structures, training staff on compliance requirements to mitigate this. Also, neglecting staff welfare has serious ethical implications. So a wrong attitude towards staff is an ethical issue. So we've talked about the layoff here and the labor, how to, on the C aspect, how to mitigate labor issues and CSR documentation. But here, you're looking at neglect of staff after you've laid them off. It would arouse resentment, increase turnover, and negative public perception. So ethically, organizations have a responsibility to ensure employees are treated with dignity, fairness, and respect. So you can see the ethical issue you are bringing out here, particularly during major changes like automation or outsourcing. So implementing transparent engagement strategies, offering retraining and redeployment opportunities will help. So ignoring staff welfare could result in industrial disputes, negative press, and long-term damage to employee or employer branding. So this is an ethical issue. You have 2 to talk about. C and F are ethical issues on staff welfare. And finally, the directors, if directors give undue consideration to accruable personnel benefits, those that are laid off, even if they are laid off, they should be given benefits. If they don't consider these benefits or give it due consideration and let it be significant, it will raise ethical and governance concerns. Potential risk of conflict of interest, financial mismanagement, and reputational damage. So prioritizing executive compensation over broader organizational sustainability and employee welfare can create resentment among staff. So executive compensations should not be above the staff they are laying off. And a way to do that is to ensure there are remuneration policies that are transparent, aligned with performance, but just balance the approach. So discuss generally on these ethical issues. So you have about 7 or 8 on the ethical issues. And once again, like I keep hammering it, please talk about ethical issues. Very important. Okay. And the next one, or the last header, is looking at evaluation of findings, risk assessment. And in the examiner structure, we are talking about your evaluative skills and judgment, how you evaluate and judge the case at hand. And in my own term, I use risk assessment, or I say evaluation of findings. So don't quote the examiner verbatim based on the header he provided in his Pathfinder or his past question, you can just coin out a header you understand. So I call it risk assessment or evaluation of findings. So the new project is expected to increase cash flow and profitability by driving high revenue streams, improving operational efficiency, and leveraging market opportunities. But you see that there is a cost. The project can enhance cost, while in the initial expenses can be significant. The long-term benefits such as customer base, economies of scale. So now this is a positive evaluation or risk assessment. So in risk management, we have positive risk and we have negative risk. So what you do to negative risk? Negative risks are dangers, while positive risks are opportunities. So in this header, when you're talking of dangers, you look at it as the negative aspect and what to do to stop the danger from happening. But an opportunity is like an investment you want to do, and there's a risk that you will lose on that investment. So you enhance that risk by putting safeguards to ensure the investment yields maximum returns. So in this evaluation of findings, the first one, now we're looking at the project and what it could do and how we could enhance it to be successful. That's our evaluation in this first point. The second one is the additional cost of the project may be understated. Yes, this is a risk, a negative risk. So if you are making provision for 20 naira, and when you are going to perform the engagement, you find out the cost is double. So unforeseen expenses related to implementation training that were not budgeted for, you are bringing the attention to it in evaluating it that, come on, ongoing maintenance could arise, inflation, supply. So these are risks you need to mitigate. So additional NDE costs, a realistic budget you're concisely saying with proper risk assessment and cost control mechanism could help prevent financial strain and ensure the project's long-term viability. So you are speaking and evaluating the findings in this header. And the fourth one is the project is likely to incur continuing costs related to software updates, of course. That's true. Cybersecurity enhancement. So proper financial planning is necessary here. We're also bringing this risk and evaluating this issue or bringing it to the fore. And finally, the fourth point, the project will require ongoing investments in the robotics and IT infrastructure. So as technology advances, upgrades, updates, cybersecurity enhancement, antivirus and co. So additional scalability demands, AI-driven solutions, all these you are recommending. And a well-structured long-term investment strategy will solve this. So in evaluating this last point, you are bringing to bear your expertise from experience, and you are writing it down to help the board make good decisions. So with these 6 headers, from the general overview, the tools you are using, the analysis of the tools in detail, the challenges and considerations, the ethical issues, and the risk assessment or evaluation of findings, you have 6 headers. And under those 6 headers, you have 4 points, 6 times 4, you have 24 marks already. And based on this point, you will now conclude. Very important. If you have these 6 points, you don't provide conclusion and recommendation, you are not going to pass case study. It's clear. So the examiner is clear in his study pack. You must conclude and recommend. Your conclusion is statement of the problem, and your recommendation is solution to the problem. I'll take that again. Your conclusion is statement of the problem, and your recommendation is solution to the problem. A summary in summary form, and make it 4 points. So the first issue in the conclusion we're looking at is the initiative presents significant growth opportunities. Financial, ethical, regulatory, this must be carefully managed. So we have stated the problem here and what the project could bring. So the recommendations should state how we should solve it, how we should enhance the project design and the objective focus. So we've stated the first conclusion. The second conclusion, talking about the best outcome of the project, will be successfully implemented if costs are reduced, profitability, the organization's competitive edge is strengthening. So this is what we are concluding on. And the third point we are concluding on is, while it has the potential to increase revenue, long-term profitability through efficiency gains and cost reduction, there is a risk that initial investment cost, ongoing maintenance, unforeseen expenses may strain cash flow in the short term. So this is a conclusion we are stating. And finally, beyond financial consideration, we are also stating that, in conclusion, the project faces several non-financial challenges, exactly, including potential employee resistance, ethical concerns. So you are concluding on this issue of layoffs. So we have talked about 4 and we pick 4 marks. Now the recommendation, what do we do? So on the first issue we stated here on the overall project design, leveraging automation, reducing cost. Now we are stating that to enhance the successful execution of the project, it is recommended that they should hire experienced project managers. This is our recommendation. Skilled professionals that will help mitigate risks, optimize resource allocation. So when you are recommending, you just state what to do. Tell them how to do it. Exactly. So this is the first point on our recommendation. Number 2, we are also recommending actively to negotiate best terms for both the staff and the organization to ensure balanced approach to these layoffs. This is how to do it. Include structural competitive compensation package. Clear redundant terms should be stated in policy. Retraining opportunities to facilitate a smooth transition. So we are recommending and stating how they should do it. The third point, we also recommend that they should leverage their excellent historic record to negotiate best terms for both the companies. So it's still on the negotiation. They should secure favorable agreements with stakeholders, suppliers, and employees at the same time. It will help enhance trust, minimize resistance, and ensure a smooth translation. So you see, we're speaking to 2 points in different ways. Also, we recommend alternative courses of action to achieve project goals. Rather than immediate reduction of staff or layoffs, the company could consider redeployment, transfers to other branches, retraining, phased transitions, or hybrid workforce. Like some people work from home, work from the office. They could consider that. So these are recommendations with specifics. Don't forget, I used to say your recommendation should be SMART: specific, measurable, attainable, realizable, and time-bound. And finally, I give you 5 here. I said they should also develop a detailed cash flow forecast, because if you look at the exhibits, there's no cash flow statement, no cash flow forecast. They just give us balance sheet and income statement. So if they have a full cash flow forecast, it will help them identify potential liquidity gaps, manage working capital efficiently, and ensure sustainable financial performance. So these are our recommendations, and we have 4. So based on this, you already have 8 main headers, and 8 times 4 is 32 marks already you have on this discussion. So take note of the structure. Take note of the structure. So we've discussed requirement 1 in detail. You can see everything he asked us, alternative business options for Wonder Bank as well as possible. We've talked about risk for each initiative and how the risk should be addressed. So you can see the requirement 1 is properly addressed in the discussion. So let's go now to the summary, executive summary of how we can summarize requirement 1. So in the summary, after this summary, we'll go on break. I know it's already time to take our eyes off the screen. Just give me a minute. Let's talk about the executive summary, then we'll go on break before we come back for requirement 2. Okay, so I'm on the, I'm trying to look at the, okay, yes, so this is the requirement. So now talking about the executive summary. The executive summary is a summary of your conclusion and recommendation, but in 1 line or 2 line item, not more than 2 pages. So if you come to my executive summary, you see I first discussed the aim of the report, the method used for both requirement 1 and 2, our reservations, and our assumptions. So now coming to the main executive summary, we talked about the project sky is well positioned for success with clear strategic vision. This was picked from the discussions. So this is 1 paragraph conclusion or summary of what you are talking about. And the second paragraph, we're looking at the challenges like resource constraint, financial pressures may hinder. So these 2 points is one is positive, one is negative. Then this conclusion is from what we just discussed. We just summarized it. The project leverages automation and robotics, efficiency, cost reduction, and profitability is a conclusion. Just summarized in 1 point what we just discussed in the detailed conclusion. Number 2, the lease option. The lease option slightly increase financial risk. No. This is not supposed to come here. It's supposed to come in requirement 2. Must be a mix-up. There's no lease option. It's supposed to be, I will cancel this. Pardon me. There's not supposed to be, it's supposed to be in requirement 2. Okay, so let's look at the third one. The project presents both opportunities and risks concerning cash flow and profit generation. Then beyond financial factors, we're also concluding on the project facing challenges. So there's supposed to be a second point that aligns graphically with requirement 1. So I will change that and present a document. Okay, so the recommendation now is also a summary of what we recommended. For the successful execution, WBL should hire experienced project managers. So we've talked about that. We just summarized it in this conclusion. Number 2, negotiate optimal terms. I think this point I was supposed to say something about the staff layoffs, and I miscopied and put the lease option here. I thought it was during the copy and paste. So this second recommendation talked about negotiating optimal terms to balance employee welfare. Third one is to leverage the track record to get possible terms after the negotiation for both the company and the staff. Fourth, looking at the exploration of alternative strategies to achieve project goals while effectively managing the workforce changes. And also a detailed cash flow like we saw. So this is summary of what you did in the main discussion. And that's what the executive summary is all about. So we've looked at requirement 1 based on what the examiner asked us. All right, so it's 9:14. Let's go on a short break. Can we make it 5 minutes? What do you people think? Or we should do 10 minutes.
It's okay.
It's okay.
Then it's going far into the night. 5. I think
This solution you are giving me, I begin to think I did nonsense. Gosh.
You're not the only one, though. Could it mean everybody?
Absolutely.
I just know I feel woefully.
Exactly. As if I've not started.
You're welcome, Aisha. Nice to have you.
Hey.
Yeah, so I'm glad that you have this solution now. And this looked like the last diet. So that's why I picked this one as the mock example. It looked graphically like the diet. If we come to requirement 2, you'll be shocked. If you see what the guy did in the appendix, maybe go through the appendix, you'll be surprised. He picked
this executive
it
summary first and foremost. Is this for just because? How will somebody
So you will practice. We will practice. Don't worry. It may look challenging from the beginning.
Practice this question.
Hey.
Exactly.
I did not see this on.
At first, I was like, the question is not
something pages. I didn't see for something pages. So.
No. You see, do you know why it's 40-something pages? That's what my namesake too said. He said 40-something pages. Now look at the tutorial, how to sort out those questions. Look at the page.
I didn't see any 40-something pages anywhere. Maybe I did not see.
Oh yeah, look at this.
I did not see Johnson.
Okay, so look at the tutorial now.
But it's not bulky.
Look at the tutorial. Just to solve the requirement 2. Look at page 1, from page 33 down to page. You see it? Down to page 42 is just tutorial. That's about. Let me see. 42 minus 33.
Oh, maybe I did not see the question.
That's about 9 pages. So don't panic. I'm glad you are panicking now. It's good so that it will strengthen you before the exam. I like this this upheaval. It's good to have this upheaval now, so that you won't have it during the exam. So go through it, understand how to attack this kind of questions. So let's go on the short break. We'll come back 9:25. We have already eaten 2 minutes out of our break time, safe. Well, yeah, let's go. We'll come back 9:25 and continue. Okay. So we're looking at, did you see the solution? I dropped it too.
Yes.
You saw it on the, exactly.